Pro Football Hall of Famer, top 100.
Tyler Lockett from the Seattle Seahawks.
DK Metcalf from
Hey, Burleson, you're watching NorbCam.
NorbCam.
You're watching NorbCam.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you the day before the 2020 NFL Draft. Yeah, it's been a long time waiting for this day, and I'm pretty excited. There hasn't been a lot of sports to pay much attention to, so this is the next best thing that we can have, right? Find out what the shape of our team is going to look like in 2020, assuming we have a season in 2020. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope that we do after all is said and done. But to help me do this, I'm bringing in a few friends with me to talk about what the Seahawks need the most here as we approach the draft and look at just kind of the offseason in general. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my good friends here to the show. We've got Calvin Domingo there on the left. We've got Noah Boelter up there on the right. And, of course, we've got Seahawks Martin joining live for the first time down there in the bottom right. And thank you, Anderson Lehman, for the super chat. Go Hawks, he says. Yes, baby, go Hawks. Let's see what we can do as we get this thing going. First of all, before we jump into the show, thanks for joining me today, guys. How are you guys doing in the midst of all this craziness?
Great.
Feeling good.
Pretty good.
No, we had an opportunity to play a little Grand Theft Auto online a couple nights ago. I gotta say that was a lot of fun. That's some things I got to do that I wouldn't normally have time to do. But thanks to this slowdown, enjoyed playing a little GTA gaming action. That was a lot of fun. We'll have to do that again sometime.
Absolutely, take out a little bit of aggression built up from the quarantine.
What about you, Calvin? Do you game as well?
I used to be a big NBA 2K fan, Madden NFL, but I don't know. I haven't played video games in a while. But I used to be pretty good on the sticks. So
okay,
but now he's butt.
It's been a while.
And I know Seahawks Martin. I know you won that bet challenge with your family. They said you had to not watch anything football related for like a week or something like that. Tell me about that, and how did that end up? I thought that ended up on a positive note. Did it not?
Well, no watching, no talking, no listening, no. I have no clue. But just so much not to do football related. Man, it was so hard. I failed like 6 times, but I was able to get through it, and hopefully we get our Xbox now because we still have to behave. Because if I don't and my brother doesn't, then our Xbox is going bye-bye, unfortunately.
So you don't. So you did get the challenge, but you haven't received the prize yet. Is that what you're saying?
Nope, not yet. My parents want a good prize. I mean, like a good price because they don't want to get ripped off. Okay,
I gotcha. Well, I hope they hurry up because this is the perfect time to be gaming right now while we got this downtime. So we can. Although I don't think you'll be playing any Grand Theft Auto anytime soon. It sounds like your mom won't let you play that game. All right, we'll have to wait a few years.
Too violent.
Oh, it's just violence. It's no big deal. No, I'm just kidding. Your folks are good people. I'm glad that they're looking after you. Anderson Lehman again, another super chat with a 1-up icon. Thank you so much for your support of this live stream, and thank you all, everybody who's here. Throw your comments in the chat. If you do a super chat, they'll definitely get the attention, and we'll try to address questions that you guys throw our way. I'd like to hear what you'd like to hear about. But while we get this conversation going, let's talk. I guess we got the draft tomorrow, but I just want to get your take so far of how you feel things have gone. Oh, you guys flipped places, I see. Noah's down on the bottom now, and Martin's up on the top. No, he's up there. He's still there. Let's talk a little bit. Yeah, I got you guys. You guys just traded places in the little square. So let's just talk about what's happened so far. How you guys feel about Seahawks have definitely made some moves so far. Picked up a named receiver from the Patriots and Dorsett. We got a corner, Quinton Dunbar from the Redskins, and then a bunch of guys who we don't really know the names of in the offensive line. How do you guys feel so far about where we stand right now? Do you feel like the Seahawks have done a decent job at addressing our needs? Calvin, I'll start with you.
I think as of right now, No. While I'm happy with some of the moves that we made, these are all just depth moves. In the offseason, Russ was talking about how we need to start bringing in, star free agents to Seattle, because that's something that we're not really used to doing. Usually when we bring in a big name, it's via trade. And I don't think we were able to fulfill Russ's request, especially because of the fact that we have yet to re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. We haven't gone after guys like Everson Griffin. We haven't gone after any of these big names. And while I know that we rely on the draft a lot to find a lot of our talent, I still feel like when our star quarterback is asking us to bring in, top-tier talent via free agency, I feel like that's a request that we can make, especially with all the cap space that we had prior to the offseason. And so, while I like the moves, we could always make better moves, and yeah, that's where I stand on that.
Okay. Anderson Lehman, I guess I pronounced his name wrong. Lehman was one who's been blowing up the super chat. I appreciate that. Anderson, thank you so much. Seahawks Martin, how about you? What's your thoughts so far on what the Seahawks have done so far in this offseason? What grade would you, I guess go back to Calvin, what grade would you give them so far in free agency moves? From an A to an F, how would you grade the moves so far?
I like to consider myself a strict grader, so I'll give us a C.
Oh, a C, straight average right there. Okay, Seahawks Martin, give me your take on the season so far, off season so far.
Well, I mean, like Calvin said, these moves weren't that big. I mean, sure, we got Dorsett, we got a new receiver that can help maybe boost up the passing game. We got some linemen, but I mean, like Calvin said, we need some bigger names. Like Russell wants these big names. I mean, yeah, he's not like the general manager or something, but I mean, he's our star quarterback. He's like carrying our team. Give him a little, listen to him a little. We should go with like Everson Griffin, Yannick Ngakoue, those big name guys. I mean, it might take up a lot of our cap space, but I mean, if these guys are talented, I mean, I think it's worth the risk.
Okay, what grade would you give them?
A C also. Not good enough.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the weather today, a little rainy and gray. C across the board so far. Anderson, another super chat. Thank you so much. I guess that goes to you, Noah. Are we going to see a straight C average, or is there any sunshine on your side of this equation? And you guys haven't mentioned. I think people have forgotten it because it happened so early on. But we did happen to pick up a tight end by the name of Greg Olson that was added early on, and nobody seems to be talking about that. But Noah,
we forgot.
I'll put that to you. Does that possibly change your grade markings here? Take the floor.
Yeah, no. I give Seattle a B for what we've done so far in the offseason. Not only the Greg Olson factor, not only the depth along the O-line, adding a cornerback like Quinton Dunbar, who I've posted a video about how I think he could be the next Richard Sherman. But you got to give Seattle credit for the moves that we didn't make. We've seen so many teams go out and overpay guys over the years and have to do controversial things, get out of those contract situations down the road. Look what the Rams are doing within our division, having to move guys, make trades to try and fit everyone within their salary cap. Look what the Niners had to do with DeForest Buckner, trading him for a pick. Seattle isn't putting themselves in a position where we're not going to be able to afford all our guys, and we're not going to reach a peak shortly so that afterwards we're going to have to fall off. We're trying to keep it steady keel, if that's the phrase, and essentially make it so that we're able to pay all our guys while also not forfeiting our win totals and our ability to make the playoffs. We are a perennial competitive franchise in the NFL, and we're going to maintain that. And so I think Seattle, the whole idea behind the Jadeveon Clowney deal not getting done was that he was asking for too much money. It's good that we're not overpaying him. I went into the offseason talking about how we shouldn't pay more than $20 million. And then now it's down to, 15, 14 million in the latest reports. And that's a lot more realistic, and Seattle still hasn't made a deal with him. So if that's what you're talking about, I say credit to Seattle. We're not overpaying for guys that we can't afford. We're not forcing trades with teams that we really can't afford to trade with. The DeAndre Hopkins trade would have been great. But our receiving core is already pretty top tier. So I'd say Seattle B, because like you guys said, we didn't make the big splash. Greg Olson arguably was our biggest splash. But what I would say is that we're not forcing it with our GM and head coach, and I give him credit for that.
All right, so a B is what you give the Seahawks offseason so far.
Yep.
Yeah, I would give them that too. Before I get into my little take here, Jetfire97. First, Anderson Lehman, a couple more super chats. Appreciate that, bro. Jetfire97 has a question and says, if you guys are following along in the chat, if the 2020 NFL season were to be postponed a year, do you think the 2020 schedule would transfer over to the 2021 season or just play different teams? Boy, that's a good question. I don't even know if the league knows the answer to that one. We're all kind of making this up as we go, and I don't think they've thought that far ahead. There's so many... The whole idea of if a 2020 football season doesn't happen, that would be the first time outside of a strike-shortened season that we haven't had a football season, or any sporting season for that matter. And it's kind of hard to imagine in this day and age an entire industry in the form of the NFL not happening, in an entire year. But I don't know if you guys have any insight to that, but my guess is that the league has not even prepared for that possibility and are hoping that in some form there will be still a season. Do you guys think that there would be absolutely no season at all, or what's your guys' thoughts in terms of the outlook on a 2020 season? Calvin?
I think we'll still have a season. I think it'll come down to whether or not the CBA and the owners can come to an agreement as to whether or not they'll allow games without fans. I heard that Kirk Cousins, he's a fan of that proposal, but then there are a lot of guys talking about, then there's no such thing as home field advantage if the fans aren't there, and so we're not really in favor of that. But like you said, it is a little too early to tell. But from my gut feeling, I still feel like we'll have a season, and yeah, I hope we do have a season.
It would be terrible to not have. I can't even imagine not having a football season. I don't know what I would do with myself for the entire period of basically August through January. I would not know what to do with my Sundays. What's that?
Oh, you can keep up with the whole saga with the whole Vanessa Chrysostom thing.
I would make more videos for sure. And I think we always have Xbox. I'm planning to get my Xbox game going on. And if we don't have a real season, by doggone it, I'll make a season that you guys can watch something on. So we'll figure out some alternate plans. I did want to mention here that we got another super chat comment. Actually, it's Dangerous. I wish it was the real Dangerous, but this is the Dangerous who was on the chat yesterday, asking me why I don't like the Color Rush jerseys. And I told him I just think the olive green is just too intense for me. But he said, well, if I got you a custom Color Rush jersey, would you wear it? I was like, well, if you were to buy me a custom Color Rush jersey, I might just be willing to look the other way this time and maybe wear that jersey. So he's in on the chat listening here. So I'm waiting. Dangerous, I'm waiting for that jersey. You said it to me. I'll put it on, baby. Anyway, I guess Martin and Martin, your thoughts? You think we'll have a 2020 season?
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, I heard that some people say it could be like a shortened season, although I feel like if they do that, it's probably because the lockdown has been extended or something. Or either that or no fans, which is totally a very bad part of it in like a Seahawks opinion. That'd not be good because, like CenturyLink, it's always so loud, full of fans. Like the defense practically like lives on that. So without the fans, like all the energy might be like drained out or something. So that wouldn't be good. Yeah,
there was I had mentioned about a interview that was done with Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk with George Kittle for the 49ers, and he was asked that same question. How would you feel about playing games without a crowd? And most players, they kind of, you assume that they wouldn't like it because they got to feed off the energy, but when it comes to coming into hostile stadiums, that's actually a huge bonus and would take away one of our main advantages of being at home. So I hadn't thought about it in the reverse. You feed off your home crowd energy, but when you're on the road, it'd be kind of nice if it's a dead quiet stadium for your offense. But again, we'll see how this all goes. But Noah, you got a different take on what you think about the 2020 season?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a preseason. I think the season will probably end up starting delayed sometime potentially without the month of September, maybe even into October. But I think there will be at least some sort of a season. With that season, there's going to be adjusted like standings. Everyone's going to have different records than regular, of course. But I think there will be a season to be played. And I think if we were to not play this year, I think things would stay the same for next year. We would just recontinue it, kind of like how and you could potentially add people to it, right? The next draft class and everything. But with how things are working, like at the college that I go to, Green River, right now, people are able to just reclassify for another year. They're eligible for one more year of sport. So I think that same kind of deal would work with the league. And I could see when we start to wean into adding fans to the game, social distancing within the stadiums, only 6 feet, or one person every 4 chairs or so, one person every 6 chairs, however they cut it down. I think that's all possible. And if we were to go with no fans at all, I don't think that's a big hit for Seattle because we struggled at home last year more than we have in a long time.
Yeah, this is true.
I think regardless, Seattle is looking at this with the best mentality. I loved hearing Russell Wilson on Colin Cowherd the other day talking about how the professionalism of the Seahawks and how even the young guys are dedicated and motivated to try and make this year one of the best for Seattle. So regardless of what happens, I think Seattle's going to make the best of it. But I do think there will be a season in 2020.
All right, I like your optimism. Just so for those of you who are joining us and maybe haven't seen these guys on my channel before, quick just kind of introduction. So Calvin and Noah, they both run a radio program at Green River College, and I was had the opportunity to be a guest on your show, and consequently brought you guys in to not only be parts of some of these broadcasts, but we watched a few games together over at Emerald Downs on some of the away games. So we've had a few fun times together. And Seahawks Martin met you online initially, and then through the help of your folks, got to not only meet you, get you some swag as a surprise for your birthday, but even got to take you to a Seahawks game last year. I believe it was the Vikings game, was it not?
Yep.
That was
a Vikings game. I had a blast.
It was a good game, and we won that game. So you were a good luck charm there. So hopefully we'll do that again sometime. So if you guys do want to listen to Noah and Calvin's show, tell them about where they can find you, because you guys have some great comment, not just about football, but sports in general. Quick shout out. You guys can promote your stuff.
Yeah, so it's called The Bolt. Saturdays from 10 to 1. You can listen live with the KGRG app. If not, you can tune in via SoundCloud after we podcast the whole thing up. It's called THEBOELT, The Bolt. That's our name on SoundCloud. As well, me and Calvin and Seahawks, we're on all three of us. I'll let you guys speak for yourselves, but we all do YouTube. I post daily videos on mine with hot takes about the world of sports, NFL, NBA, you name it. Just today I posted one about who I think Seattle should draft, and we're going to talk about it in just a minute, but you should still check out the video.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my channel. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, go for it, Cal.
So my channel, Steezy A. Smith. Noah kind of already went into it. I dropped a video earlier today as well, just talking about the whole Rob Gronkowski to the Buccaneers trade. So I was just kind of giving my take on that. If you guys want to check it out, be sure to subscribe as well. Yeah.
I'll put your guys' channels links in the description for people to look it up. But you brought up on the subject. So yesterday, big breaking news was the surprise announcement that Rob Gronkowski, the all-star tight end who had gone into retirement from the New England Patriots, shocked the world by announcing that a trade had been done. He came out of retirement, and the Bucs traded to get him reunited with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. And boy, what do you guys think? Is this a significant thing? Is this a marketing move, or do you think that this duo has something left in the tank that they could do some damage down in the NFC South? Calvin, let's start with you since you brought it up.
I think that so before the trade, I didn't have the Buccaneers as Super Bowl contenders. I had them as a wild card team coming out. But now with the addition of Gronk, you add him to a team with the best receiving duo in football, and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You have two solid tight ends, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, And you have a solid defense. They were number one in rush defense last year. They allowed the least amount of rushing yards. So you have an underrated defense that was put in a lot of terrible situations with Jameis Winston and his pick parties throughout the season. And so that defense, you should look for that defense to be a lot better this season. And so you add a guy like Gronk, who's still a top 3 tight end in football today, even after a year off. That offense is dangerous. And you still have the draft to address holes. And now with the addition of Gronk, you could also trade one of your tight ends for, let's say, maybe a running back, maybe for extra draft compensation. And so with this move, I actually have the Buccaneers finishing as the number 1 seed in the NFC. Now I have them as NFC South champions over the Saints.
Wow.
They're going to field an offense.
That's big.
Rival, not only rival the Chiefs, but I feel like their offense has the potential to be even better than the Chiefs. And so I'm not sure if Gronk has too much left in the tank, just because he has been dealing with a lot of injuries. And I know he's had a year off from football. And so that should give him, a lot of rest. But he doesn't have to provide the type of numbers that he put up while he was in New England, just because there's so much talent around in Tampa Bay. And even if he wasn't to be healthy, even if he wasn't healthy for a full year, I mean, like I said, you still have all this depth at wide receiver, at tight end. And so he doesn't have to be that superstar tight end that he once was, but he still kind of instills that fear in defenses. And so I think that this move kind of takes him over the top.
Wow. NFC South division champs.
Yes, sir.
Seahawks Martin is shaking his head over there. Do you just disagree?
I think Calvin went a little too far on that.
Drinking too much Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, sure, signing Gronk and Brady was good. But, I mean, Brady, if you noticed last year, he was not in that same type of prime that he was, like, in the past few years. And Gronk, I mean, he's been out of the NFL for a while. I mean, sure, he went to WWE, won the 24/7 championship and all, but, like, I just don't feel like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll do good and all, but, like, I mean, you've got, like, you still have, like, O.J. Howard, could be a backup tight end. You have Chris Godwin, you've got Mike Evans, the top receiving duos in like, the entire NFL, but I feel like Calvin went a little too far. The Saints are still pretty darn good. They've still got Michael Thomas. They've got arguably one of the best QBs besides Tom Brady and Drew Brees. So I think that the Saints still can maintain their division. And, I mean, the Bucs, they have got to fight to see if they can make it to the wild card, because you've got, like, I mean, Seattle might still have to fight for a wild card. You've got Arizona now after DeAndre Hopkins. You've got Eagles, Cowboys, Vikings, and so many other teams that might as well just barely beat out the Bucs. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, so not so much confidence that Tom Brady necessarily is the Messiah to lead them to the promised land, but we will go to Noah. Noah, where do you stand on this Gronkowski return? Is he going to make that big of a difference to catapult the Buccaneers to the top of the NFC South? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Calvin's tripping. First of all, what Gronk is not a top 3 tight end in the NFL right now. Let's be very clear about that. What I think Gronk could be, he could be a top 3 tight end when it matters the most, at certain plays, at certain times. He's not going to be that consistently throughout the year. He was getting injured every single year in New England, not playing full seasons. And then even in his last year in New England, when they had that Super Bowl run, he was only making certain plays at certain times that were able to flip the game. So I agree that he can be a top 3 tight end for certain games, like when it's divisional week against the Saints or against the Falcons, or come playoff time, whoever they're going to be playing. I think Gronk could be a top 3 tight end then, but he's not going to be that throughout the entire season. And if that's what you're asking of him, you're looking for the wrong things. You talked about how much talent they have around that roster. They have 2 other excellent tight ends. I know they're looking to trade at least one of them, but right now they still have those guys on their roster. They have all those wide receivers. I think Gronk is going to come in down the stretch of the year and be that safety blanket for Tom Brady. When it's 3rd and 15, you're on the road. There's fans once every 6 seats, and there's still enough noise that you want to pass to your safety blanket, and that's when they'll capitalize with Rob Gronkowski. How I feel about this team, first of all, I thought they were Super Bowl contenders before they added Gronk. Now they add Gronk, and they can go anywhere and beat anybody, no question about it, especially if there's no fans in the stadium. So how I feel about it within the division landscape, I think it is neck and neck between them and the Saints, because the Saints, in my opinion, have arguably the best roster in the NFL on paper. And then you compare it to the Buccaneers now, they might just be 1-2. I think it's Seattle versus San Francisco in terms of how close they are as of last year. And I think it's going to be just like that again this year. I say Seattle is the better team over San Francisco because of the fact that we lost so many guys last year and we were still like an inch away from winning the division. And so it's the same thing with Tampa Bay and New Orleans. It's going to be within 3 inches, no question about it. That division, I think it's down to the wire. I think it comes down to week 16, 17. And I think both of those teams are going to have a chance. Whoever gets the 5 seed is going to compete, might upset somebody in the wild card or divisional round.
Wow, good take right there. I'm kind of with you. I still feel like the Saints, they still are in that window. They should have been in a Super Bowl one of these past 3 seasons. They've just been snake bit by some bad luck and some bad plays that have kept them out of the big game. But they still got a lot of talent, like you said, both you guys addressed. And I don't know if Tom Brady and even Gronk combined, even if they were at last year's level, and Tom Brady, I think, from what we saw, is not the guy he was when he's at the top of his game. It looks like he's lost some arm strength. Can he get the ball down the field to Mike Evans? He can run the routes, he can catch the ball, but can Brady deliver it to him? That's what we'll find out. So I don't know. I think they're going to definitely be improved, but I still think the Saints are the big boy on the block. There's a lot of people in the chat wanting to know what we think about Percy Harvin. There's been a lot of chatter online about Percy Harvin. What's this? Everybody's coming out of retirement all of a sudden. Percy Harvin's coming out of retirement. I saw this video of what's the tight end from used to be with the Chiefs and played a little bit with the Falcons. Gonzalez put a video up saying, "Hey, I don't know if he's joking, but he's like, yeah, I saw Rob, coming out of retirement. He started doing drills and catching passes, talking about. I think it was maybe tongue in cheek, joking about it. But all these guys coming out of retirement. Percy Harvin, of course, the guy who was one of the bright spots in Super Bowl 48 and became one of the sore spots the following season. He eventually moved to another team, and then retired. Him coming out of retirement, I don't know. I have not really been following this story. Is there some teeth to the story, or is this just sort of a rumor mill on a boring, slow news day? Cal, quick answer to that.
There's definitely some truth to it. I read a report about him. He was talking about how he has fresh legs. It's been 3 years, and he feels like he's ready to go, and he wants another crack at it. And so I think it's very real. It's all about whether a team is willing to give him a chance or not. Seahawks
Martin.
I don't feel like we should bring Percy back. I mean, if you look back at the 2013 season, there were articles and like the other wide receivers kind of had beef with him. I heard that he punched, I think, Golden Tate or something like that.
Yeah, he did.
He was like a locker room cancer. So bringing him back, I mean, that Coach Pete wants a healthy environment in that locker room, and him coming back would just kind of ruin the whole piece. All the just quiet stuff.
Yeah, well, they pretty much jettisoned all the guys who were becoming the vocal opposition to what was going on ever since Super Bowl 49. Most of those guys are I think, entirely gone, wiped the slate clean, making this Russell's team now. Noah, what do you know about Percy Harvin? And is there any even inkling of sniffing him on the behalf of the Seahawks or any other teams interested in Harvin?
I ought to chop off that Seahawks nose if they're sniffing Percy Harvin right now. No, we have the best wide receiving core that we have had in years. We do not need Percy Harvin. Like Seahawks Martin said, excellent point, big fella. that he was a cancer in our locker room. That's not the fit for Seattle. I think what Percy Harvin's looking for is a championship contender. He wants to win a ring. He wants to go join Tampa Bay on a veteran minimum contract or something like that and just return kicks or something. I don't think Tampa Bay's the fit, though. I think you have to find a location that just needs a spark wide receiver, a plug and play, where he can just make certain plays and get him the ball in certain scenarios and try and help you win some games. He's going to probably go to a team that's either the favorite in their division or a team that's in a bad division. And it's just going to be a run for a Super Bowl, in my opinion. I don't think Percy Harvin is going to have a tremendous impact. Kind of like Gronk, if he's in the right situation with the right quarterback, he can make certain plays down the stretch of a game that could definitely impact the game. But we're not going to see consistently the player that we once saw. And if we're expecting it, we're getting our hopes up for the wrong reasons.
Is Beast Mode going to play again? Calvin. Or Martin.
No, Calvin could go.
Calvin. Have we seen the last of Beast Mode, or is there still something left?
My gut is telling me that we've seen the last of Beast Mode. That's just my gut, so I'm gonna go with that.
I mean, technically, where does he stand right now? Is he just an unsigned free agent? That's a 1-year contract. It's like a one period contract that we had with Beast Mode. He's kind of not really in with anybody right now, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard about anything, and I mean, even in the games that he did play for us, his yards per carry average was pretty bad. And so, even if he wanted to come back, I just don't know if we'd want to bring him back, especially with the draft coming up. There's a lot of younger guys that we could bring in with fresh legs, and so I think, we've seen the last of Beast Mode.
Yeah, but Beast Mode was averaging like 2 yards a carry, but man, when he's at the 1 yard line, that 2 yard average just gets the job done. You know what I'm saying? He scored a touchdown in like every single game he played in. Come on now. Seahawks Martin, what do you think? Beast Mode?
I don't feel like he's coming back at all. I could see in the chat that some people are saying that, Jonathan Taylor, maybe we could draft Jonathan Taylor, like Joel A says that. Maybe Jonathan Taylor could come, but if Lynch wants to come back, he could be like a player coach or something like that. I don't know. But I know the running backs coach, Chad Morton's doing pretty darn good with his. They should
just bring back Beast Mode as a cheerleader on the side. He'll just be on the side kicking it with the team, eating Skittles, and then just in case they get to the 1 yard line, he'll be the 1 yard line specialist. That's what they should do.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had 2 opportunities for him to win a huge game with the ball at the 1 yard line, and we blew it both times. How the hell does that happen? Anyway, I don't want to get on that subject. But Noah, real quick before we get to the draft, Beast Mode, yes or no?
Yes, and here's why. There is nothing different right now with our chances of bringing back Beast Mode than there were last year at this very same time. What it would take is a very desperate team that he's already known the system that needs a guy because all 3 of their running back got hurt. We wouldn't have brought him in before the season last year. But after all our guys got injured, we brought him in because we didn't have anybody. We interviewed Calvin for the job of starting running back before that playoff run last year. And for that very reason, Beast Mode is just as likely to come back this year. He played a couple of games, but he had a lot of touchdowns in those games, even though he might have struggled in yards per carry. He's a plug-and-play guy in certain scenarios. He gets the crowd going. He gets the locker room going. He is just as likely as he was last year to come back and play. That doesn't mean get your hopes up for him because, Lord forbid, we need Beast Mode to come back and save us like we needed him to come and save us last year via so many injuries. I don't want to see it happen, but he is just as likely now as he was last season, if not more likely, by showing how able he is to stay in shape and maintain his ability to fall forward the way that he has throughout his career.
Quit freaking. Call Beacon. That's all I have to say about that. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the draft. And I know that most of the time, all draft experts are all wrong when it comes to trying to figure out what the Seahawks are going to do. So this is always an exercise, probably an exercise in futility. But it's fun to entertain ourselves and think, what would the Seahawks possibly do? I guess let's approach this from, first question. This could be a short one: is do the Seahawks draft somebody in the first round, or do they drop and pick up more picks? Calvin.
We're going to trade back.
Trade back.
unless a top tier prospect like Javon Javon Kinlaw, C.J. Henderson, Xavier McKinney, maybe even like a DeAndre Swift. If any of those top tier prospects fall, or if they're available at like 27, I feel like we'll stand pat and take them. But if none of those guys are there, we'll trade back.
Wait. You think we take Swift at 27? I mean, we took Penny, but
potentially, I've been hearing rumbles that we could look to target a running back, and if we think Swift is the best, then yeah, I mean, we like you said, we did take Penny at 27 a couple years back, and so I think that's a very real possibility. Even if it's not Swift, it could be like Seahawks Martin mentioned earlier, Jonathan Taylor. Yeah.
I think.
Are you saying, Calvin? I want to reserve this question. I'm going to get past the first question. I got a question to ask, then follow up. Seahawks Martin, trade back or pick?
They're probably going to trade back. I mean, they pretty much trade back every single year besides Collier, Penny. But usually trading back's the thing they do, unless, of course, like Noah and Calvin said, they got a top prospect in there, like Swift. Maybe even if you want to just pick early with a DN like Gross Matos or Zach Vaughn, they might do that. But at this point, usually they just trade down for more picks.
Noah, trade back or draft?
I agree with you guys that it's very likely that they trade back. I don't think that would be the right move, though. We need to go after big-name guys that can fill roles that we need filled right now. I think there's no question in my mind that there's going to be a prospect that we could definitely utilize with that pick at 27. I don't think we go running back. I think we go defensive end. I think we go defensive line unless we're able to bring in some more guys this offseason. We'll get into that, but I do think we pick at number 27.
All right, so Calvin, were pretty high on getting a running back in that first pick if somebody's available. Is that where you see the Seahawks' biggest need, is running back first before a defensive end or some other position on the defensive side? That's a little surprising to me.
No. I'm not saying we should prioritize a guy like DeAndre Swift or any of those top running backs. I'm just saying that if at 27, if none of those top tier prospects are available, but then a guy like DeAndre Swift is there, I feel like we could still trade back to, let's say, pick 30, pick 31, 32. If we end up trading back to that spot, then I think that's where we could potentially target a running back. And with the extra picks that we collect, then we would go like defensive end. But I just been hearing rumbles that we're very high on Jonathan Taylor, and he's expected to go in the late first round, early second round. And so if those reports are accurate, then we would trade back a couple of spots, stay in the first round, and then target a guy like Jonathan Taylor or any of those running backs. But no, running back is definitely not our biggest need. Even with Rashad Penny coming off a torn ACL, Chris Carson coming off a dislocated hip, I do think running back is a need, but it's not our biggest need.
Noah, your thoughts on our draft needs?
First of all, Calvin, I think that was very well said. I definitely think that if we are to draft a running back, trading back would be the way to go. I think we go into the first round. If we're talking first round, I think the only running back that we would draft in the first round, DeAndre Swift. After the first round, that's when I start to look at Jonathan Taylor. I would look at us trading back into the second round, and then within the first probably 15 picks of the second round, that's when I think Jonathan Taylor will probably come off the board. So, but I definitely think with the first overall pick that we have, I have a hierarchy. Like Calvin was saying, I like C.J. Henderson, I like Clavon Chason, I like YGM, Yader Gross-Matos, I like Zach Vaughn a lot. Yeah, but YGM is the guy that I've circled in right now as the most realistic because of the fact that he plays defensive line like a running back. He has great patience. He has great vision. He waits for the hole to develop, and then he fires through it as if he has the football. And that's what I want to see from our big defensive lineman. He plays the game similar to Michael Bennett, and he's great at making plays on the football. You can't run zone schemes against him. He's very physical, very strong hands. I think YGM is the most realistic pick for us right now. Yader Gross-Matos out of Penn State in the first round at 27.
You think he'll be there at 27?
Oh, yeah.
I sure hope so. He's projected for the late first round or so.
Okay. All right, so Seahawks, Martin, do you got any other thoughts on who you'd like to see the Seahawks pick up as a number one priority for Seahawks needs?
Yeah, like Noah, I do want to go with YGM, Yeter Gross Matos. Man, this name's really hard to say, huh?
YGM is a lot easier.
Yeah, YGM's easier. People saying he's like big and quick, and he did really well at Penn State. Apparently, the last 2 years he had 34.5 tackles, and I mean 17 sacks in 2 years is pretty darn impressive for a college player. He just seems most realistic to play with the Seahawks because of the way he plays at Penn State. You could see like how good he was, and I'm pretty sure he plays in the same 4-3 defense that the Seahawks do, right?
The Seahawks are 4-3. So if Penn State's a 4-3 team, it would be a good fit, I think, alignment-wise. So that could be a pretty natural fit for him.
He's moved around a lot. It's very flexible. And yeah, I do believe that they do play 4-3.
All right, good observations there. So I guess that's going to be the fun thing to see if Seattle actually breaks the trend and drafts somebody with their first pick as opposed to pushing back. But it feels like they're not going to do what our conventional thinking would be, which is to go grab somebody. But I don't know. I get a little nervous on that. Even when they have drafted early, I haven't been very impressed with Seattle's first early picks anyway. I mean, let's look back at a few of the ones last year. LJ Collier, wasn't he early second round? He wasn't.
No, he was like 29th, 30th.
Was he first round? Oh yeah, but we did, yeah. But again, he's only been here for a year, but his first year wasn't exactly stellar. In fact, he wasn't even on the field most of the time at the end of the season, so it was a little disappointing. I hope that might change, but it certainly wasn't much of a coming out party. I think in his second year, Rashad Penny, while at the time he was drafted, I think a lot of us were like, whoa, we did what to get him? Unfortunately, the injury bug bit him right when it was starting to get good for him. I think he was just hitting his stride when that injury got him, that knee injury. It happened at the most inopportune time, and right down the stretch as we were entering the last quarter of the season. But hopefully he can recover from that, and we'll still get what we hoped we would get from him, because we were starting to see it. It just took a year. So that one's yet to be determined, I guess, whether that was a pick that really worked out. And then I'm trying to think of some of our early picks that. When's the last time we had a first round or a number one pick, or not number one, but when they didn't push back and when they did actually draft early, that it actually worked out for us? I mean, I think of. Who?
Earl Thomas, Bruce Irvin, Earl.
So you had to go back to 2010 to think of a good. Bruce Irvin was good. Bruce Irvin in his second year. His second year, he had his strong year. But I think of more. There's more bad than good when I think about that. We got the ATV dude. What's his name?
Malik
McDowell. One of the worst things that ever happened in terms of the draft. Even Jermaine Ifedi, who we just let go, that didn't work out. I mean, we didn't sign him to an to the extension, let him go for, and teams weren't exactly lining up, paying him big money either. So he really didn't turn out to be. It wasn't a good fit. He just was not a very good pick. So I don't know what that's a sign of. If it's, do we not scout well? Is it misprioritizing? What they're looking at? But so. We'll see. We'll see if they what they do. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do in that. My gut tells me they're going to push back. They're going to trade back and try to get a few more picks in there. But it should be fun. Let's see. We got a couple more super chats in here. We got Jetfire97. It's crazy that our worst experience being Super Bowl 49 was the evil number 49. Also, whenever I hear Katy Perry, I'm reminded of it because she was at the halftime show. That's true. I was there in the stadium for that game. I don't want to relive it right here. This is not, but there's a lot of things that we were so close to having the greatest game and the greatest season ever. And it's amazing how one thing could change what would have been the greatest of all time to the worst of all time in one split-second moment, how life can change. And it's crazy how that is. But Man, so looking forward, I guess it seems like we all have the gut feeling they will trade back. So, what do you think the Seahawks' number one priority will be? Do you think they'll follow the conventional wisdom, which is, I think everybody overwhelmingly, and myself included, feels like they have to get a defensive end. We don't have Clowney. We really don't have much in the way of a star defensive end right now, so the draft is where we got to get it. So it seems to me that you've got to make that your priority, right? It would be crazy to get a running back before you get a defensive end. Or am I crazy? Or the Seahawks crazy? I don't know.
Seahawks are crazy, though, just a little bit.
I know this is like trying to read somebody's mind, but I don't know. Just try to get a sense if you guys have a gut feeling as to what you think they're going to do. Are we going to all be in shock? Or are we all going to go, huh? They got, what's his name with the hard name to pronounce? They did get YGM from Penn State.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think that no matter what happens, Seattle likes to go unconventional. So I don't think they're going to do what everybody expects them to do. If they get YGM, they might trade back 3 picks and get YGM, or they might trade up 3 picks and get YGM. I don't think it's going to be conventional. It's so hard to predict what Seattle's going to do. What I do think is very important is what free agent moves we're able to make before tomorrow, if we make any at all. I think Everson Griffin is still a guy that Seattle's looking at very intensely. I think Jadeveon Clowney deal is very close to potentially getting done, and for him to come back to Seattle potentially on a 1-year deal. I remember Calvin bring that up at one point. I really like that idea a lot. But I think how this draft fares will totally sculpt the rest of free agency and how it goes. We still have a lot of needs on our team, including defensive end, including secondary help. I look at a lot of the safeties in this draft. I would love to get Antoine Winfield Jr. at some point in this draft. And let me fix my camera right there. Sorry, I just got a call. There's a lot of needs, a lot of depth moves that we can make throughout this draft. I think it completely carved how free agency looks for the rest of this offseason. I think Everson Griffin is still on the table. I think Jadeveon Clowney is still on the table. And we might be surprised with the draft pick because we have an agreement with somebody that, okay, if we draft this position instead of yours, we'll sweeten your deal a little bit and you can come sign with us, right? So there's still potential that we could go offensive tackle. There's a lot of offensive linemen in the draft that are going to be available. Last time we did a mock draft, I think Calvin had like 5 or 6 going off the board in the first round. So I wouldn't be surprised. Cesar Ruiz is another guy that we're looking at. Austin Jackson, guys that could come in, fill big roles for us. What if Andrew Thomas were to fall? It's not completely unheard of because there's so much talent in this draft. I think whatever Seattle does, there's a really good chance it's going to be unconventional. There's a really good chance it's going to be surprising. And so we just got, as Seahawks fans, we got to sit back and be excited and hope that they don't blow this one.
And let me run a little exercise by you guys. So let's just say, it won't happen, but let's just say the top prospect in each position is available at 27 that is on your guys' board. What order do you guys go in where you go, okay, they're all available, the ones I want, but I've got to pick this first, this second, and this third. So what are the 3 needs the Seahawks need most? Tell me by position. How do you rank the positions that you think are the most important for the Seahawks? Calvin, let's put the pressure on you first. 3 positions in order of importance.
So we also have a need at defensive tackle. I wouldn't even just say at defensive end. So I think our first priority, defensive line. Second priority, I would go with, this one's tough. This one might sound surprising, but I'm going to say linebacker. Just because KJ Wright, he's getting older. He did put up a career high in tackles last year, but there's just something about him that seemed a little off. He didn't make the best tackles. I noticed that he missed a lot of tackles, and he does have a big contract. And so if we were to set aside money for, let's say, Everson Griffin, if we were to set aside money for a potential trade involving Yannick Ngakoue, if we were to set aside money to potentially bring back Clowney, I feel like if a top-tier linebacker prospect like Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray were available, I feel like that would make KJ Wright expendable because, like I said earlier, he has a $10 million cap hit, And so if we were able to find a linebacker at 27, that would make KJ Wright expendable. And let's say we cut him, then we could bring in, a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, have enough money to bring in Everson Griffin and Clowney. And so I'm going to say linebacker would be second. And then third, I'm going to say secondary.
Wow, that's a lot of ifs there. I mean, I like the fact of getting Griffin, Ngakoue, and Clowney. Boy, that would be like the trifecta. But man,
Maybe two of the three.
I thought getting just 2 would be a miracle. Getting 3, I wasn't even dreaming about that. But I like the positivity. Martin, what would you 3 positions of need in order?
Well,
in the draft, go.
Number 1, pretty obvious. You gotta have a pass rusher, D-line man. Because obviously our D-line was just a piece of poop last year. I can't cuss because that's bad. I don't know about number 2 though. I mean, we've got so many positions that need help. I'd rule out wide receiver. We have some young guys, and with the addition of Philip Dorsett, I think we'll be okay. This one's hard. I mean, we could try to get like an O-lineman to have a little competition with the new guys, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, you could go with running back because, I mean, Chris Carson keeps getting injured. Rashad Penny did not have his best season last year, and then CJ Process is going to be out soon. I mean, you have Travis Homer that could compete, that you could have draft a running back to compete with Travis Homer. So I guess I would go with that. But I think I've gone to a blank for number 3 because there's a lot of positions that we kind of need help on.
So wait a minute, is CJ Prosise still on the roster? Technically?
I think
How the hell is he still in a Seahawks uniform? My God.
Yeah.
That guy's been like, it is amazing how that guy has managed to just hang around. And I don't nothing against him except the fact that he can't get on the freaking field. But man, that guy's got like a guardian angel just like keeping him safely on the roster this whole time. Nuts. Anyway, Noah, what's the 3 positions of need the Seahawks would need to fill in order?
So I got to side with my boy Calvin. I really liked the fact that he brought up that the Seahawks are probably going to bring in some more edge rushers through free agency. I agree with that sentiment. That's why the number 1 need that I would address, if we're able to bring in a free agent edge rusher, either Jadeveon Clowney, Everson Griffin, is someone to play alongside this offseason. We haven't brought it up, but 2 guys left our roster from the same position. And Norb, remember that the qualifier for this question was if all the top prospects are still on the board within reason, right? So I think it's reasonable that a top prospect for this position, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle to replace Al Woods and Quinton Jefferson. We bring in another edge rusher through free agency. We add Javon Kinlaw, a guy who can get to the quarterback from an interior position. We see similar things for him that we saw from Jerron Reed. He's stronger. He's physical. We would love to bring in Javon Kinlaw. That would be my number 1 priority because I think we go edge rusher through free agency, and I think that unique Ngakoue trade is still on the table because just like Jadeveon Clowney, and the reason I gave Seattle a B when we were talking about free agency grades is because we're not overpaying for our guys. The Jaguars wanted a ridiculous deal, a mind-blowing deal for a player that doesn't even want to play for that franchise, and that's not going to happen with Seattle. Seattle picks and chooses, and they're doing the right thing by doing so. I could still see unique Ngakoue coming over to Seattle. I definitely think Everson Griffin comes to Seattle. So I say the number 1 need, if the player is there, Javon Kinlaw. Number 2, I also agree with Calvin that we address the linebackers. I think we go outside linebacker. We have Bruce Irvin now. We need someone to play offside him or on the opposite side. And so I look at a Clavon Chase on if the top prospect is available. Even if that guy is not there, another guy that we've talked about a lot was Zach Vaughn, who's an edge rusher, yes, but he played a lot of linebacker. He has great anticipation. He's very fast, and they dropped him a lot at Wisconsin last year. And so that's another scenario where I could see him playing in a Kendricks kind of role or very similar to Bruce Irvin. He can get to the quarterback, great at blitzing, gets to the quarterback. like I said. And so I think outside linebacker, or if Kenneth Murray's still on the board, I would love to see us take him off. I don't think he's going to be there, but I would love to see Seattle go after him. And then third need, I go secondary. I think we look Tyler, safety or corner. I would love to add a C.J. Henderson if he's available. I don't think he'll be there. But another top prospect I looked at, and he's on my top 5, Grant Delpit out of LSU. He's an excellent open field tackler with how we like to use our guys. That's very important. And he's great at undercutting routes with great anticipation, very similar to Quinton Dunbar in that sense. I like Grant Delpit and secondary/safety as our third need. So defensive tackle, linebacker, safety.
I love it, Noah.
Nice, Noah. The passion in which you deliver these facts is lit, man. I'm kind of similar to what you guys are saying. I feel like, again, an obvious one is defensive end. I still feel like defensive end because I'm not as optimistic as you guys are that these other outside deals, free agency, are going to get done. I'd like to think there will be a surprise in there that a Griffin or an Ngakoue and Clowney, one of those 3, if not maybe 2 out of 3 could get done. I'm just not holding my breath on it. But my feeling on needs in general, that aside, is we definitely still need pass rush. I agree, defensive tackle. We lost a lot in that department. We need to shore that up. And then I was going to go offensive line, but I'm still in that secondary side. I like what they did with Quinton Dunbar and with Shaquille Griffin on the corner positions. But of course, those are only 2 guys, and those would probably at this point be your starters. But then what happens if any of those guys go down? I still feel like our secondary has not yet. We're far from Legion of Boom status at this point here, and so safety, corner, we still have a lot yet to be figured out on that side. So I feel like that's a position I still feel we need some help in. So that would be my direction in terms of priorities, in terms of position. So that's gonna be interesting. I thought at that scenario, but we know it's not going to happen. To have the at 27. Most of these guys that you're spitting out are not going to be there. But you never know. There might be that one guy who just keeps getting slips down, and maybe just by some luck falls into our hands. And we'll see who that might be. Like DK did. Yeah, DK went, second round? Wasn't he second round, mid-second round when he finally went through?
Final pick, yeah.
Final pick, yeah, because he was passed on a couple times by teams. So for all those early picks that we've done poorly on, DK represents those really good picks that have worked out splendidly, and that we got a little bit lucky on. So, I am excited. I do feel like the wide receiving core, Malik Turner, is going to no longer be a Seahawk. I'm excited. I'm hoping that this might open up the door for John Ursua. I feel like that guy never got a chance to really show what he could do. I'm not sure why they kept him as a healthy scratch through most of the season. I'm curious what you guys think. I mentioned yesterday that I had a really good interview. I sat and did an interview with him in person for about 20 minutes down by Seahawks training camp, and he was the coolest guy, totally down to earth. I felt like I was just talking to just some dude I just ran into in a coffee shop and started chatting. I mean, you look at him, you don't think you're looking at a football player. And he's a shorter guy. He's got an average build, but the dude's on the field. He can move. He's got quickness. He's got good hands. But we didn't really see him do much. And he almost won that 49ers game if he could have gotten the ball stretched out across the goal line. But we never saw him again after that. He didn't play in the Packers game, to my disappointment. And Malik Turner went and dropped a couple of really key balls that would have possibly changed the tide and the possible outcome of that Packers game, and maybe given us the opportunity to face the 49ers. So, unfortunately, I think that hurt him in terms of sticking around for another season. But what's your guys' thoughts on John Ursua, if you have any?
He's got potential for sure. I feel it.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think so before he got drafted, I was looking into a player comparison, and I'm not saying he's going to be this player, but a player comparison I think is pretty fair is Doug Baldwin, in that he's this guy who's kind of, he didn't get much recognition, coming over from the University of Hawaii, but over there he was a slot receiver, and he was able to produce. And like you said, he's not the biggest guy, and that's Baldwin. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the quickest guy, but he's a hard worker. And I feel like next year we'll be able to I don't think we're going to unleash them just because we have a lot of guys like Noah kind of got into earlier. You know, we have a top-tier receiver group in Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Philip Dorsett's going to stretch the field. But I think John Ursula, you know, he could be a guy for us in the slot. And he could be pretty shifty. And so also like Seahawks Martin said, he has potential, and I can't wait to see what he brings to the table next season.
Oh, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Doug Baldwin is a bit of a high ceiling for John Ursua, but that's coming from the same guy that said Quinton Dunbar, Richard Sherman in the same breath. So I can't really pick you for that one. I do think the comparison in terms of their abilities and what they do on the field is pretty spot on with Doug Baldwin and John Ursua. I think he's going to have an opportunity to play for Seattle. Injury bug is inevitable. We hate to bring it up, but it's going to happen. Guys are going to get hurt. We hope Philip Dorsett is going to work with us. What if that just doesn't work out and we need a guy that knows the system, that we know can potentially win us the division in a certain given play, but, you know, that we can trust out there. And so Ursua could end up being that guy for Seattle. I could see him having a growing role this year on the field. Seattle likes to take their guys that they drafted or they picked up, and they give them some time to really build them up before really involving them in the game plan, a.k.a. Rashad Penny, with what we did versus the Rams last year. That first drive, he was all over it. After that, he got injured, and our game plan was screwed because we were revolving it around Penny. I think Ursua is a guy that we're going to start to feature more, maybe not in the first couple of weeks of the season, but as the season goes on, the injury bug hits a couple of guys. I think Ursua is going to get some more snaps.
What do you think? What do you think? I think tight end is going to be one of the biggest impact positions for the Seahawks this year. And I believe that if we could have had our tight ends stay healthy throughout the last two seasons, Disley, if he hadn't had those season-ending injuries 2 years in a row, I think we're talking about a different playoff scenario. Now, the idea of Disley and an Olson both staying healthy in a double tight end set, we haven't been able to have the luxury of a really good double tight end set in a long time. Disley and Olson could be a really good 1-2 punch we haven't seen in a while. Curious what you guys think about those two guys working together. How important do you think that will be? And do you think these guys could have an impact season? And can they last an entire season? Because they both have had some injuries the last couple of years. Calvin.
Most definitely. They're not just adept pass catchers. They're also both solid run blockers. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to bring in a guy like Greg Olson. Not only is he able to, stretch the field, but he's a great run blocker. And let's not forget, Will Disley, coming out of UW, he was known more for his run blocking than he was as a pass catcher. And I think it's pretty safe to say that everyone was surprised to see what he was able to do, catching footballs for us while he was healthy and on the field. And even if any of those guys, let's knock on wood, but even if any of those guys were to get injured, we still have Jacob Hollister as our number 3 tight end. Luke Wilson is still there. He's been in the system. He knows Russ. He has that chemistry. And so we have all this depth at tight end. Even if we were to sustain an injury to any of those top 2 guys, we still have this depth to back up those guys. And, I think we're going to be really dangerous. I think if we don't end up addressing a wide receiver or any of those if we don't end up targeting a wide receiver in the draft, I think it's because we're very confident in our tight ends. We have 4 solid tight ends that could all catch the football, run block, they're all versatile. And so, I think that's what we stand on there.
Martin, what about you?
Well, I just feel like these two could be a good 1-2 punch. There's some cause. Disley can't stay healthy. Greg Olson, he's been fighting injuries since, 2016, 2015. I see some people in the chat saying that, either cut Hollister or keep Hollister. You never know. I feel like Hollister would be a good backup because when Olson Disley was gone out, you saw Hollister step up. He was pretty darn clutch. But if it were Olson and Disley, I'd really like that really good 1-2 punch, like Nord said. I think they'd be pretty deadly.
And we'll have isn't Luke Wilson back this year as well? Don't we have Luke Wilson back? So theoretically, that's Techno Thursday. So we right now I think that is 4 tight ends on the roster, that's quite a bit more than we're used to having. So I don't know if that's too many at this point. Noah, what do you think?
I really like what Calvin had to say, but he didn't take it far enough. Here's the thing. With how our tight ends play, Greg Olson, Will Dissly, right? Those two guys, they're not solid run blockers. They are great run blockers. Will Dissly was the best run blocker in a tight end coming into the draft that year when we drafted him, and he's been unable to stay healthy. What was such a surprise to us was his insane ability to catch passes with Russell Wilson. Well, that's because every defensive lineman that lines up across him is trying to think about how they're going to get past him somehow because he's so good at run blocking. I think he's a great run blocker. I think Greg Olson is a great run blocker. And that's also why I think it's inevitable that, unfortunately, at least one of them is going to get injured at some point throughout the year. When's the last time Greg Olson played an entire season in the NFL? Will Dissly has never been able to do that in the NFL because he's been injury prone. I think it's unrealistic to expect us to have two tight end sets with Greg Olson and Will Dissly at the end of the year. But I agree with Seahawks Martin in the fact that Jacob Martin or Hollister. Jacob Hollister is an excellent third tight end for Seattle. He knows the system. He knows how to get open. He does a great job with scramble drills. When Russell Wilson goes out of the pocket, Hollister is really good at finding the hole in the defense and just sitting in it and making himself available for the quarterback. So I think as the season begins, we're going to see a lot of two tight end sets with Greg Olson and Will Dissly, have them out there blocking. I think one of them at least goes down. Unfortunately, throughout the year, we're going to bring in other tight ends to continue blocking. But I definitely think that these tight ends have the potential to be the best tight end core in the NFL.
For some reason, I only feel like the Seahawks are keeping Luke Wilson because like he brings a good environment to the locker room or something. But I mean, like if you look at him, he's more of like a blocker guy. He's not really a pass catcher unless like Russell has an emergency and he literally dumps it off. But I mean,
you're talking about Luke? You're talking about Luke Wilson?
Yeah.
I don't know. Luke Wilson, I don't think he was really known for his blocking, was he? He was kind of more on the receiving side. I don't know if he was so much of
he didn't really catch
blocking.
a lot. I mean,
he didn't do much last year. He didn't do much at all. But
I disagree. I think we knew him as a runner because the time that we had him was when we had Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham was the soft little pass catcher. And Luke Wilson was the guy that did what Seattle wanted, and that was to play physical. So I do think Wilson has that physical side to him, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it for a season. Remember, he got cut from the Raiders last year. We watched it live on Hard Knocks and then came to Seattle. I think Seattle's the only place that will fit. We can't expect him to play full games of greatness. I think coming in for a couple of plays, if a tight end, if one of our guys does get hurt, I think he could come in and play a big role. He definitely has the ability, Norv, like you were saying, to catch the ball. But I think he made his name first as a blocker, and that's how it has to be with Seattle's offensive scheme.
Well, when you're the opposite tight end from Jimmy Graham, even I am a better blocker than Jimmy Graham. Okay, so, relatively speaking, it doesn't take much to be better than the other tight end with that last name Graham.
Fair point.
But not a knock on Wilson. I love Luke Wilson. I think he's great. He's an even more entertaining interview than he is a player. But I like what he does, in the locker room, on the practice field. And he's got to just grow that hair super long to where it's like flowing out his helmet, past his name tag, because I think his strength comes from his hair. And he was his best when his hair was super long and he looked like a savage when he'd do that spike and he'd do the, at the end. We need to see more of that. And it just doesn't look right when his hair is really short. So he needs to make sure he grows it out. That should be part of the contract requirements when he goes into the 2020 season. Then I think we might have something there.
Incentives by the inch.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I at this point, with the draft, I think we've speculated as far as we can speculate. Once you get past the first and second round, it's a whole wide open. Who knows what's going on? Once you get past the second round, there, it's going to be interesting to see if they do any transactions tomorrow. I feel like the action is going to happen on day 2, but you never know. This is a weird draft. You're going to have Commissioner Goodell in his bathrobe from his basement announcing the picks. No one's going to be booing him for the first time in his career, which is going to be, I think, good for him.
They'll boo him virtually.
So it'll be fun to watch. Definitely a different type of draft than we're used to. I'm just trying to think. Who do you guys think? who's going to be the most impact player, new or current, to be drafted, or new or current player for Seattle next year? Who's going to be that player that's going to be the impact player for 2020? Start with you, Calvin.
Aside from Russ?
Aside from Russ, because that's too much. That's too easy of an answer. We know that's not even a surprise. We know that's going to be the case. But who's behind Russ? Who's the next most important impact player?
Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, I wasn't going to go the Russ route. I think right now, if you were to ask me that question today, I would go with Quinton Dunbar. Just because our secondary was a mess last year, and we brought it up in previous videos. He was rated the number 2 cornerback by Pro Football Focus in football last year. If he could just stay healthy, which is a big if, I think that he could provide so much stability and so much just great coverage for us on the back end of our defense next year. I think that having great coverage back there will be able to help our pass rush. And so even if we aren't able to bring in any big name guys, or even if we aren't able to draft guys that could provide an impact or bring an impact for us, on day one, I think that having great coverage, sticky coverage, from guys like Quinton Dunbar, and he's only going to help. Shaquille Griffin, he was a Pro Bowler last time for the first year, for the first time, and so I think that he's going to make a great 1-2 punch with Griffin, and yeah, because aside from our pass rush issues, I think that secondary and just our inability to cover receivers last year was just bad, and so I think Quinton Dunbar would be the answer right now if you were to ask me that question.
Martin, how about you?
I think I might as well just go with DK Metcalf, actually. I mean, he had a pretty impressive rookie season, and I feel like now that he's just been playing amazingly, I feel like he can just show out. You never know. I feel like he's got still has a little bit of proof, most likely his route running and all. But other than that, I feel pretty confident about DK maybe showing out, maybe even taking over Tyler Lockett as the number 1 receiver. No, actually that probably won't happen. Tyler Lockett's too good, but I feel like DK Metcalf can do it. And I feel like that he will be a really good player this year, maybe even 1,000 yards.
I like both of those so far, but that's not my choice. Noah, who do you have?
So I really like what you both had to say, but I think Calvin is a little bit closer on the point. I think it's neck and neck between two guys. Quinton Dunbar is absolutely going to have a phenomenal year in his first season with Seattle. He plays to our system. He's going to be a plug-and-play guy. He's going to play phenomenal for us in his first year. I think it's very close, his impact, with Bruce Irvin, who we're just bringing back for the first time after having the most sacks in his career with 8.5. He still holds the Seahawks rookie record for sacks in a season. I believe he had 8 in his first year back in 2012. But the other player that I look at, and this is only if Seattle gets him. If Seattle likes to trade out of the first round, but then trade up in the second and third rounds. I'm looking at a guy that could be our next Earl Thomas, and I'm talking about Antoine Winfield Jr. If we were to, and this landmaker, he ran down a wheel route with the running back after getting beat to win a game by intercepting the football. This could be our guy that helps put a staple on our new secondary, creating our next Legion of Boom. We're going to have to start coming up with new nicknames, because if we're able to bring in this guy with Quinton Dunbar, we still have Quandre Diggs, we have Marquise Blair, we have Shaq Griffin, and we have Bradley McDougald. That's going to be a powerful, now physical secondary. Antoine Winfield Jr., if we were to draft him, that would be an instant fit with Seattle. I think he would get the start. I think he would come in and be our biggest impact player. But if we're talking about players that we know Seattle has, I think it's very close between Dunbar and Irvin. But right now I'd give the edge to Irvin just because he gets to the quarterback.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to kind of go back to my tight end side, and I'm going to say Will Dissly is going to be the guy who's going to have the highest impact for the Seahawks, because every time he's been with the Seahawks, he has been an impact player. He came out being one of the most prolific pass catchers to start the season. I believe that's how it started last year and even the year before then. And his impact on the running game is huge as well. As soon as he was gone, we lost a dual threat position. We lost a blocker and we lost a pass catcher. And I think when he gets back in there and he's able to last the season, even if he doesn't play all 16 games, but if he can stay in there even if he gets banged up, but can come back in the last quarter of the season and make it into the playoffs, I feel like that changes the entire complexion of our offense. That, with, of course, all the additions you talked about. I'm excited about Quinton Dunbar. I'm excited to see what Bruce Irvin can bring if he can keep that momentum going with the pass rush. Not to mention whatever we get up in the draft. I'm excited to see what Philip Dorsett can do as another target for Russell Wilson and John Ursua. I feel like these are all names, that we've, the names like Ursua, the second-year guys who haven't really had their shot yet, and so are kind of under the radar. This might be the coming out party year where they were kind of just largely overlooked in the first year. The second year, these guys will come up and make their contributions. But Will Dissly has been contributing from day one, moment one, both seasons. His only problem was staying on the field. So I believe if he stays on the field, he becomes one of the biggest tight end contributors in the NFL. So that's my take. That's my hope anyway. If it gets to that point.
That's excellent. I love it.
Yeah, so we'll see. So many things. But I guess it starts tomorrow with the NFL draft. See what Seattle does at 27. I assume you guys will all be watching with bells on.
Without fingernails.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I know you guys have been on here. I know Martin's phone's about to die. But we've had a lot of people watching steady here. We were close to like 100 people steadily watching the stream, which has been the highest it's been in a while. So obviously a lot of people curious to see what the Seahawks do in the draft, and want to see what us silly guys had to think about that. But I appreciate everybody in the chat commenting and asking questions, and of course those who hit the super chat up. Appreciate your guys' support too. Just trying to think if there's any last thing. One last question before we wrap this up. Tell me what you guys think is going to be the end of the 2020 standings at the end of the last regular season game. Give me the standings first to fourth in the NFC West. Calvin, as usual, we'll start with you.
NFC West. All right, so I think this is the year where we'll finally break through and win the division. Seattle, number 1. I think we're going to finish at 12-4. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. I think they're going to finish 11-5. Number 3, the Arizona Cardinals. I have them finishing 9-7. And then the LA Rams, number 4. I have them finishing 5-11.
Whoa! How far the former champs have dropped. Seahawks Martin, what do you think? NFC West standings at the end of the 2020 season.
Like Calvin, I think this is totally going to be our year. Seahawks, number 1. We are going to be the NFC West champions. Finally, we are taking the crown back. I'm going to go with 12-4, like Calvin. Next is San Fran, who unfortunately lost the Super Bowl. Well, for me, I was celebrating, like my whole family was celebrating. But I think they're going to end up 10-6. Number 3, I will go with Arizona. So pretty much my entire NFC West standings is basically Calvin's. Arizona will go 8-8. I think that even with Hopkins, they still have a lot to prove. Kyler Murray's pretty darn young. But I think they will win some games this year. Maybe even one against Seattle. You never know. And finally, and these guys have fallen far down. And they still probably have to pay the ref a bunch of money for not realizing what pass interference is. But I think that the Rams are going to go 6-10 this year. Jared Goff is just going to be very average, I guess.
If he hasn't been already.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Noah, what about you?
So I'm pretty much I'm in agreement with you guys in terms of the order. I disagree with the record, and I disagree with the implications. I think Seattle finishes 12-4, 13-3, somewhere in that ballpark. I think 12-4 is a safe, realistic bet, so I'm going to say 12-4. I think San Francisco goes 11-5, so I agree with you, Calvin, on that. Arizona, definitely third. I think they go 10-6, and I think they make the playoffs. I think they're the 7th seed with our new standings. And then the LA Rams, I'm right with you guys. I think 5-11 or 6-10, somewhere in there. I think 5-11 is a little bit more realistic just because the division just got so brutal. And I think they struggle because of it. Jared Goff is absolutely average, and he doesn't deserve the money that he's getting paid relative to what other quarterbacks are getting paid in the NFL. Of course, I want to see the man get his money as a person, but just in terms of what he's able to do on the field, he doesn't deserve the contract that he's been extended. So I agree with you guys in terms of the order, except I think Arizona makes the playoffs as the 7th seed.
All right, pretty consistent. Well, I'm gonna pretty much go with what you guys were saying, but I'm gonna go out here with a little bit of go out on a limb and shake things up a little bit. I'm gonna go from the bottom to the top. I'm gonna say the Rams struggle with they lose Brandon Cooks. Gurley, who they paid a whole bunch of money to, is gone. Those guys are practically entering in a rebuild phase. I think that they're going to be around 6-10. Third place, I believe the top of the NFC West is now going to be very competitive with the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, second year, and with the DeAndre Hopkins added to that list of his receiving core. I think the 49ers take a small notch down in a very tight division at 10-6, with the Cardinals edging them out at 11-5, and Seattle taking the division at 12-4.
Okay.
It's that close. It's like first, second, third, fourth. And the Cardinals start sniffing the second place spot in the NFC West. How do you think about that?
Wow. Okay.
I just made that up. I didn't give this thing any thought at all. I just made that up. I think it's just my wishful thinking that the 49ers struggle because they're obviously the biggest pain in our side. So we'll see. I do think though that Murray's going to be. He's a good quarterback, and I think once he figures some things out, and now that he's got a really good weapon to throw to, that scares me. That scares me a lot. So, we'll see what happens.
Norb, if the Niners somehow don't make... Oh, wait a minute.
What were you saying, Martin?
If the Niners somehow don't make the playoffs, could you videotape Chrysostom crying on his couch?
Oh, I would happily... shows Chrysostom wallowing in his sorrows if and when the 49ers don't make the playoffs, or if they make the playoffs and lose. Yeah, that would be pretty freaking awesome. Hey, what are you talking about? Get off my case. We're not finishing third place. You're out of your mind. Me. Anyway.
Like your shirt, Chrysostom.
All right. Well, I think that's about it, guys. I am going to be doing a mock draft of my own later on this evening. I've never done one in my life, so this is like my first attempt at a mock draft using some software, thanks to Noah. Actually, you're the one who kind of showed me the light on how to do it, so I'm going to give my crack at it and see what the heck happens. And, what the heck? If anybody can do it, why not me? We'll see what happens. But that was fun. We talked a lot about a lot of different things, helped get some predictions, some guesses out there. We'll see how this all turns out. We'll look back at this video at the end of December and see how accurate we were with all this. But we got the draft tomorrow. Again, I want to thank our guests for coming today. We got Calvin Domingo at Steezy Way, Noah Boelter at DJ Squabo. You guys can check them out on the KGRG app and at their YouTube channels. I will put them in the description. And Seahawks Martin, thanks for joining us as well, who also has a YouTube channel. I'll put all of their information if you want to watch their videos independently on their own channels. Subscribe to them and give them some love, all right? Other than that, thank you guys for watching, all of you who are in the chat, everybody who contributed to the super chat, and just for those of you who are just watching and just getting a kick out of watching us talk about stuff like we know what we're talking about. This was a lot of fun, guys. We'll do this again, maybe sometime between after the draft, maybe analyze what they got. If you guys are open to that, maybe we can do something the following week and talk about the new players that we have added to the roster and see what we think of the new Seahawks crop in 2020. Sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All day.
All right, and I will be live streaming the draft over the next few days. So I think I might even do some call-ins or something just to pass the time while we're waiting for picks to come in. So it'll be fun. It's fun to just have a little something football to talk about and react to, since we've had no sports whatsoever other than watching old highlights. So that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to my guests, Calvin, Noah, and Martin. And I'll see you guys at my mock draft tonight and at the draft tomorrow. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to y'all later.
Thanks for having us, Norb. Always a pleasure.
All righty, guys. Take care. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Can't believe I'm still here. Wow.